Chapter 9. The Absence of Light. The title of today's communication is The Absence of Light, and I wish to put into your minds a concept that you have probably not considered before. I want you to consider darkness, an absence of light, and to consider that the world was not always a dark place, and that what you consider to be night and to be shadowy places did not in fact exist prior to the fall. You have to understand that at the point that the debate ended and the decision was made, the light was shut out of the equation. And by light, I mean God consciousness. I mean the ability of souls to tune in from within and to realize, understand, accept and work upon the fact that they are part of God. So, at the point that the debate came to an end and the decision had been made, humankind was plunged into darkness, a darkness initially of the heart-mind. It was as though curtains were drawn around the heart-mind, obscuring the direct vision or direct point of connection between man and God. As a result of this darkness and absence of creative light, the seat of consciousness or seat of negotiation with the outside world was moved from the heart to the head. As there was a coalescing of perception of form into a solidification that included internal organs, the seat of intelligence and of perception was drawn slowly away from the heart, the true seat of perception, into the nerve center or the commander of the nerves, known as the brain. There was a shift in perception because there was no point at that early stage, early still meaning that thousands of years had already passed since the point of the fall, in trying to perceive the newly created type of world that followed the fall from the point of view of the heart. There wasn't enough light to communicate with the outside world via the heart. Therefore, the seat of interaction, or the interface between the outside world and the inner being, the angelic being, was of necessity slowly transferred from the heart into the mind, brain, or head, where the necessary sensory organs were nested, in order for interaction between the angelic being and the outside world to take place. Naturally, as this happened, there also occurred a further moving away from any communication which would enlighten the being, the now human being, and would enlighten the world via the drawing in and giving out of light via the heart center, which had become darkened and imprisoned. So initially, there was a rebellious need to draw away from the heart, and there was an investment in a belief system that had been constructed over thousands of years as time is measured now. There was a refusal to accept that the consequence of the science experiment that had gone wrong was the creation of a dark place. There was a turning away from God, almost to say, "We told you so, and it is going to be all right." There was a distancing from the ethereal and a steeping in the material. So initially, the head mind was a sought-after location. It was a further investment in the belief that the actions of the fall, another word for the experiment that went wrong, were correct, that it would be all right eventually, that the darkness would dissipate, and there would be a positive consequence of having taken the decision that plunged the souls into the fall in the first place. Over the millennia, as form solidified, there was a drawing away from the heart center further and further and further into the head center. The head center perceives light and dark, does it not? But the light that it perceives is a small, tiny percentage of the light that it used to perceive through the heart-mind. The light that you perceive here is a tiny fraction of the spiritual spectrum. It is as though someone has lit a candle in a distant barn, has then put an encasing gauze around that candle, and you are standing miles away from the barn at night, and you perceive it dimly. That is the amount of light that you are, in fact, experiencing at this time in a human body. and you feel that this amount of light is sufficient for you, that you are illuminated by the sun on bright mornings, and that you have sufficient power from electricity to illuminate your homes on dark nights. What you do not have is sufficient power to illuminate from the heart. If you were to accept yourself as an angelic being once more, the amount of light that the heart is capable of giving out is phenomenal, is blinding to physical eyes, and is enough to illuminate outwards like a burst of energy encompassing thousands of souls. This is why I have urged you to get in touch with your heart center once again. Joseph here is referencing his other books. And to send out from your heart center, because the amount of light each of you is capable of far exceeds the small spectrum of light and darkness that you originally created as agents of the fall. Do you see now how difficult it is for you to realize your spiritual potential when viewing it from the point of view of the head mind? You are viewing your spiritual potential under a dim light bulb that has been smothered by gauze and darkened by belief. In order to realize your potential, you have to get back to the heart, because the heart is where you began. And the heart is what needs to be triggered again to restore to you what you are and to restore the world to what it is. There is an effect of God-light upon this world. God-light vibrates at a particular rate. God-light has entrenched, enmeshed, and woven into it a harmony. And it is that harmony that restores and is capable of restoring your world, that restores your angelic vision with regard to how you perceive others and how you perceive yourself. It is vital, therefore, that God-light is brought back into this world. It is the restorer of harmony, the restorer of angelic memory, the restorer of the original matrix of the earth, and the original matrix of your angelic bodies. And I hope that also relates to passages I have given you in the past regarding the potency and the effectiveness of light. When you are ill, for example, and when you perceive yourself as having some disease, it is because you are perceiving and treating that disease through a small spectrum of light. What we are inviting you to do is, once again, fling the door open wide, so that the original amount of light available to you, which has never been taken away from you, is made available to you again. And light heals, because light is harmony. Whilst we talk about a lack of light, I also want to bring to your attention the fact that many, many souls carry with them an angelic memory of the fall, and to this very day refuse to let go of the notion that they were right, despite the view of the world that you have through this dim amount of light, despite the destruction, the carnage, the inability to cope, the inability to heal, and the inability to find happiness and harmony. Despite all those things, there is a rigid, stubborn, and inflexible angelic memory within many souls that says, "We are right, and we will prove it." And you have at your feet a history of how you have proven it. You have proven it with war. You have proven it with torture. You have proven it with illness. You have proven it with poverty. You have proven it with lack. You have proven it with an inability to control physical matter. Oh dear. And it is to those souls that the most amount of light needs to be given. They need to be bathed in God-light, so that those stubborn memories eventually break down in light, and they will. But during the span of this current civilization, they have never been given enough God-light and enough harmony to break down those memories. You see, originally there were leaders, to use earthly terms, and there were followers, or instigators and supporters. Those leaders not only still believe that they were and are right, and are therefore seeking to maintain this world as it is, but they have buzzing around them acolytes, supporters, and people who reincarnate in order to be with them, because at a subconscious level, or level of full consciousness, they still believe those leaders to be right and wish to be with them, believing this time they will succeed, and this time they will show the others that they were right all along. Now I hope that makes sense of the previous information you've been given regarding souls who are the instigators in the fall, and who rise up in terms of your world to perpetrate terrible crimes against humanity, who seek to overturn current world order and to replace it with their order at the cost of thousands and millions of lives. It is simply a memory that is propelling them forwards, a hunger for power, and a memory that says, I was right and still am. And therefore, all I need to do is imprint on this world my vision of how things should be. And harmony according to my terms, will then exist again. You repeat yourselves, and repeat yourselves, and invest in the same patterns, because you have not, either as a leader or as a follower, thought your way from heart out of the transgression that you committed yourself in order to instigate the effects of the fall. What you call darkness and what you call night is only perceived by you as night because you cannot perceive the light that is in it. True, one object casts a shadow on another, but with spiritual eyes, within the shadow, you can see such beauty and such delicacy of colour, not the black that you perceive now. Black, as a spiritual colour, is invested with the other colours. It is not the absence of light that it appears to be. So, during your daylight hours, you see through a limited spectrum, and during your nighttime hours, you see through an even more limited spectrum, and perceive everything to be dark and black, which it isn't. The heavens are alive with colour, or alive with vibration, or alive with prana and energy, but you cannot perceive them because your view has been limited due to the effects of the fall. I would invite listeners, intellectually at first, to begin to imagine a world where there is no darkness. I invite them to look at the darkness and say, well, Joseph says there is a light in this. I must therefore investigate it, and must, in my imagination, see light in the darkness. And that is your mission in trying to change this world through light, to always perceive light through the darkness. You need to be metaphysical about this, not just to see light in the darkness each night, but to see light in the darkness of a situation, to see light in the darkness of an illness, to see light in the darkness of circumstances that appear to be dark, encasing, stifling, and inflexible, because they are not. When you begin to see light in the darkness of any situation, you lighten it. You make it less heavy. You put more light into it, and it can work out the purpose that it is supposed to work out in elevating your spiritual senses. Light in the darkness. Also consider, metaphysically, the darkness that you place around yourself so often. The dark ways that you look at your life and yourself in your personal situations. I suggest to you that you see light in the darkness of those as well. So many souls who commit suicide have come to the point where they can see only the darkness. If only they would perceive the light in that darkness, their situation would change. This is not a smug comment. It is a comment designed to help, and to say, nothing is so black, because the black doesn't exist. And to say, you are a spiritual being. You are angelic and you can refocus your vision from the heart rather than from the head mind into any situation and lighten it. You can see its worth and its part in the great machine that is running constantly to bring you back to a time of God consciousness. Back to the start point, and back to the point where you can say, I wasn't wrong, I was mistaken. It was a point of view, which I have held for millennia, that resulted in me perceiving this world, myself and others in a certain way. Now I realize that I have an alternative. I have a choice, and in choosing light, I can throw light into my own circumstances and understand them better. I can also throw light into the circumstances of others, so that they can begin their long journey back inwards to realize who they once were. And if you are one of those people who finds comfort in darkness, I would suggest that it is not the darkness, but the no thing that you find comforting. It is the fact that darkness takes away much of the materialism that you see during the daylight hours, and that materialism is heavy, is a burden, and has attached to it all kinds of demands that in the night time you cannot see, and therefore are less connected to. If you feel comfortable in darkness, it is not the darkness that you crave, it is the no thing. It is the distancing from the constant material visions that are placed in front of and around you that limit the amount of light that you can see. I wish to talk about the steps that were taken by those outside of the fall to rescue souls who had invested themselves totally in the effects of the fall. But this will be at a later date. So, the next logical thing for me to talk about is the need for the spiritual realms, as you would call them, and how those spiritual realms function in illuminating the souls who were part of the fall. That is all the spirit realms exist to do, to illuminate those souls. But before that could happen, and before those spiritual realms could be constructed, there was a time of darkness. The initial time of darkness was a time when souls outside of the fall, the angelic host, prayed and delivered their light constantly to the earth plane and to those who were suffering within the encapsulation of the fall, in order to bring some perception of light to the souls within that encapsulation, for whom this was a very chaotic time. It was not that they were in total darkness from a visual point of view, but they were plunged into total darkness from an angelic point of view. That initial burst of an absence of light led to the desire to find light, the desire to survive, and the desire to absorb power, because power in its purest form is light. We will talk about that on another occasion, but it is something that pertains to the way that things were initially. And initially, things were extremely dark. Unfortunately, things are becoming extremely dark again, because the perception of most of humankind is geared towards materialism and towards a total absorption in the physical universe that is seen through the physical senses, and a turning away again from anything other than that perceived physical universe. There is also a worship of that physical universe. So you are worshipping chaos. If you worship chaos, the problem is that chaos becomes your God, and chaos serves you as a God, because that is what you expect it to do on a subconscious level. Each night before you sleep, I would like you to see a candle by your bedside that illuminates not only your room and your soul, but the whole of the world. A candle of intense spiritual light that is capable of transforming. Know that that candle burns actively whilst you are asleep, to illuminate your thoughts, so that you communicate correctly, as you should do in the times when you escape from this world at night, with those who care for you and can lead you out of this illusion. It burns brightly whilst you are asleep so that it is constantly feeding the other souls who are not so illuminated, to show them a path down from the mind into the heart once again, so that they can begin their journey of self-illumination, or re-illumination, because the amount of light that you had, you still have. You are your own jailers. You are your own prisoners. You have placed yourself within the jail, and you are serving a term of imprisonment that you do not need to serve. And I am offering each of you a key. Only you listening to this book, can free yourself from the prison you have placed yourself in. Only you. Not me and not any other soul. We can advise, we can teach, we can show the way, but you have to take the steps. We have given you the key, this glorious key, to take, to turn, and to unlock your spiritual memories, to unlock your history spiritually, to unlock your potential, and to unlock your ability to love your way out of your current situation. But I stress again, as I close this section, that only you can do it. Only you. I will not, I cannot, and I am not allowed to do it for you. Nor is anyone around you. Spouse, father, mother, friend, advisor, teacher. They are not there to do it for you. Please, listen. You have the power to unlock what you once were, and to become that angelic being again. You still are that angelic being. You just don't realize it. And you have the power to change you and to change the world around you. No one else. You. Questions, please.
Joseph, could I ask a question about the repeating patterns and the different progressions of souls? Presumably we all started off as the angelic children who made that decision that led to the fall, but since then some people have actually progressed through the spirit realms and have escaped into infinity. Others are still in the spirit realms, and a lot of people haven't progressed at all, and as you say, still think that that experiment was right. Why have people progressed at different rates? Why can some people evolve spiritually, but a lot of people can't?
There is a hierarchy to the effects of the fall. All of God's children are equal, but all of God's children have been given different areas of expertise. In the beginning, and by beginning I mean of life here after the effects of the fall, there were certain elements or groups of souls who were responsible for creating what you see now. It is as though if you want to build a house, you need a plumber, a carpenter, a painter, a bricklayer, someone to put the roof on, someone to wire up the lights, and someone to put in the carpet. Each has a different skill, but there will also be a project manager. There were, if you like, project managers, and it was to those that the other souls looked in agreement with regard to the proposition of changing the rate of manifestation of matter that is at the core of the twist that resulted in what you see today. Those project managers were involved in the original debate for thousands and millions of years, and their belief was that the project would be beneficial to God and to every form of creation. So that belief was carried through into the fall by them, to a greater extent than it was with the other workers or followers of those project managers. In fact, all that they had, once the fall effects began, was the belief. Therefore, it takes longer, in the case of the project managers, to shake off that belief, because they are more deeply devoted to it than many other souls. At the periphery, you have souls who are able to shake free more easily, because they are more susceptible to inspiration. and the belief that they carried with them into the fall world was not as solidified as it was with the project managers. Therefore, it is those on the outside who respond first, but it is those at the core that need to change the most. Do you understand that?
Yes. So it's sort of luck of the draw depending on what you originally were.
Not as such. There is choice in all things on an angelic level, and there is a rota, if you like, that is tailored to the individual so that the individual can, at any time, examine other aspects of itself and decide that it will invest energies in other aspects of creation. If you are saying it is unlucky that the project managers happened to be project managers at the time of the fall, luck had nothing to do with it. You have to remember that those angels at that time had examined their perspective, presented that perspective as a viable alternative to the perspective that God had in heart-mind, and had 100% decided that that perspective was correct. They, in earthly parlance, became stubborn, became inflexible, became so sure that their viewpoint on creation was correct that they would not allow anyone else to influence that viewpoint until it had been thoroughly examined. It wasn't as though in the debate there was a faction saying, "Yes, we are right," and a faction saying, "No, you are wrong." In that debate there was a faction saying, "Yes, we believe ourselves to be right," and a faction saying, "Please be careful. We feel that the effects of your actions will lead to chaos and to an encapsulation of your beliefs in heavier matter, which you may not be able to escape from." It was not a condemnation from the other angelic forces. It was a very sympathetic ear, as always, to the viewpoint being presented by the project managers. It was an attempt to gently show them that their way could and would result in a downfall for them. Unfortunately, the project managers had become so enmeshed and so totally absorbed in their point of view that they perpetually created it as the way forward. And the promptings, warnings and help offered by those outside of this group were not taken. Do you see?
Yes.
Another question, please.
I'm reminded of the old saying that every cloud has a silver lining. And I suppose that little point of light is always there in the heart, isn't it, Joseph?
An excellent analogy. You are limitless as the angel that you truly are. Limitless in the amount of light that you can absorb, channel through yourself, and expel into the atmosphere around you to irradiate yourself and others with. Limitless, because God is limitless, and you are part of God. That light has the ability to reinstate harmony in any situation. Any situation. Even the most dire situation, as you view it from the point of view of the earthly mind. Light is a reconnection and an affirmation of the original harmony of the angelic host, and is available to you, is the way to go, and is the source of your being. Once you re-establish that that harmony is the source of your being, anything else becomes a deception and falls away as a trapping that is no longer real. Your harmonious light, which exists at the core of your energy wavelength, is perfect. God's way is perfect. And it is that perfection that you project into situations around you to change them. Let us take the word belief and substitute observe in its place. And take away the words I believe in this light and substitute I reobserve this light. When you reobserve that light in people and in situations in your world, then, from your point of view, you can only observe the light. So you are functioning as you originally functioned in bringing harmony into everything that you see, think about, touch, or project into. So yes, indeed, within every cloud there is a silver lining. But we have to bring you to the point where you cannot see the cloud. The cloud only exists within the theatre of illusion that you have created as a result of the fall. And you are being what you were designed to be by God. You are functioning perfectly as an angelic being capable of creating whatever that being believes to be true. Unfortunately, you are functioning perfectly to produce perfect chaos, because that is what you believe to be true. You produce perfect illnesses. You produce perfect wars. You produce perfect famines. You produce perfect cataclysms, because you cannot do otherwise. You cannot half-heartedly create anything. You are an angel. You, therefore, produce wholeheartedly anything that you perceive to be true. That is your nature. You have only cut yourself off on the surface, because you are still an angel at heart. The important thing, at heart. Therefore, you create perfectly the world that you created so long ago. You perpetuate it, and you invest in it, because you cannot see anything else, as you are working from the distant seat of perception that you call the head mind. Not even in many cases acknowledging that there is a second mind, or the original mind. You have to get back to the original mind to see the silver lining, to project the silver lining, and to dispense with the illusion of the cloud. Is that a sufficient answer?
Yes, thank you.
One more question before I break the connection.
Could I ask a question that relates to the last chapter about the divas? They weren't part of the decision that led to the fall, but we've trapped them in its effects and their suffering. But doesn't that contravene what I thought was one of God's #1 laws, which is free will? Here, the divas don't have free will, and presumably the animals that incarnate don't have free will either.
The divas were part of the tapestry of creation relating to this world. The divas flow through all creation, and they flow through you at a very, I don't want to say low level because that is wrong, at a very loose level of creativity. They are part of the original builders of the house. Their mind is a group mind and does not react as the individual minds react that were involved in laying the carpet and putting the roof on. And so, by free will, they permeated the creative matrix of the earth as it was. At the point of the fall, their consciousness was imprinted within the angelic children that instigated the fall. So the divas are integrated with you. And it is their wish that that part of themselves that is linked to you be brought out of the fall. They, because they are a looser interpretation of individual form than you are, also exist to a certain extent outside of the fall. So the greater part of their mind is invested in creation outside of the sphere of the illusion, and because of that, they are able to hold the matrix together at times when, were it not permeated by the divas, it would destroy itself, as it has done in the past. So there is a volition for a certain outcome on behalf of the diva minds and connected mind that exists outside of the fall, but also inside of the fall. It is a mark of unending love and a shining example of God love and the spiritual love of one individual for another, that part of them that is invested in the effects of the fall seeks to illuminate the creative matrix of the earth in order to release the angelic children from the effects of the fall. In other words, yes, part of the divas is trapped. Trapped is perhaps a bad word. I should have said permeates the matrix. But it is an act of volition in that they seek always to maintain the structure of the world, until such time that the angelic children are able to liberate themselves from the effects of the fall. You have to remember that the divas are also integrated with the very fabric of the planet. They care and nurture for the spiritual qualities of the world that existed before the fall, and they bring through structure that allows you to operate on this level. You have to look at animals in the context of them being part of a diva. and not the individualizations that you feel they are. They are able to manifest as those individualizations, and once they have passed from this physical plane, they are fully conscious of being part of the diva and an integrated part of that consciousness. In the way that a snail can push forward a foot and then withdraw it again into itself, so can a diva push forward aspects of itself that can be recognized as animal life. At the end of its term of physical consciousness, that animal life can then be withdrawn back into the diva and can be pushed out again to be recognized and function as what appears to be an individual intelligence, but is in effect an intelligence that is consciously linked to part of the whole and operates on two levels. As do you, but that is another story. Does that make sense to you?
Yes. It's complicated, but yes.
It is far more complicated than you realize. I must let Michael go. I thank you for the opportunity to expand the themes that we have been talking about today. And I also thank you for your response to the urgency with which I have been pressing Michael to complete the task of bringing through the information on the fall. It should be noted, from this point onwards we have decided that, if we possibly could, we would sit once every 2 weeks for a communication, rather than once a month as we had been doing. This, if everything went well, would allow us to shave some 7 months off the production time of this volume. Something that Joseph felt was necessary, considering the present state of the world, as you will see from his comments at the bottom of this chapter. This is a very difficult time of year, because there is never more belief in matter than you find at Christmas, when there is belief in matter being the saviour of all things. But, quite apart from the Christmas festival, there is a belief in matter that is accelerating. Your computers are drawing you in. It might seem to be a more etheric type of matter, but it is nevertheless matter. Your computers are pulling you in and uniting you. They are assembling you on one set of rails as a united front, glorifying the matter that is available to you. The matter that, at present, people feel will solve all problems. That technology is the answer, and that being connected to one another is the answer. I want you to consider that being connected to one another on a physical level is quite a different thing to being connected to one another on a spiritual level. You are being connected more and more each and every day, so that you can unify according to the field in thought and purpose. And that thought and purpose is to contribute more energy to the field. So you are being unified, but only on a physical level. Can you say, hand on heart, that the world is being unified spiritually? No, you can't. Unification must come spiritually if things are to change, not materially. Not materially. It is fine to be able to communicate with each other via computer links and other various pieces of technology. But you have to understand that there is a motive behind all physical matter. And that motive is to herd you, to control you, to power you, and to lead you in a certain direction. Nothing that you see is without agenda. Everything has a purpose and an agenda. There are 2 agendas that are happening at the moment. There is the agenda of the spiritually enlightened, which is to draw people into a realization, once again, of who they are and who they were. And there is the agenda of the field, which is to control at all costs and to be fed at all costs by the energies that are produced from a dependence on the field. The field cares not about cataclysm. The field cares not about the end of the world. The field is the ultimate selfishness. The field cares only for the field, only for now, only for today, and knows that it wants something. It wants power and it wants to control. But the field is extremely clever because the field is a conscious result of having millions of minds, millions of capabilities, and millions of concepts poured into it. So, and here Joseph is addressing the members of the circle, there is an increasing urgency to what we are doing. And I ask you to review your lives. Not review as in look back on, but review as in realize again what they are for, from the point of view of who you are and why you are here. And you are here behind enemy lines to present this information, nothing more. You have done the things that others need to do in order to reconcile heart and mind. You did them before you came here. You are here to be used because you volunteered to be used. It sounds harsh, but that is your purpose. And that is your purpose when you switch on the physical mind. It still is. Otherwise, we couldn't use you. So, we thank you for the ability to use you. And we will attempt to bring through much more information in a shorter time next year, so that you can finish this most important of books. This is the most important book. The most important book.